Sonic Adventure 2 is my all-time favorite video game, and has a soundtrack so good that each piece of music used fits and truly enhances the adrenaline-pumping levels, cutscenes, characters, which their tracks even help flesh them out more so, or heck, the menu music to the point that the advertisements, which would be standout tracks on a normal video game soundtrack, go so hard that it helped teach me to multitask since I can't help but dance and groove with the music every time it's playing. It is, in my opinion, the best video game soundtrack ever made to date, as this career-defining album was able to take the genre-infusing and high-energy rock-based groundwork of Sonic Adventure's absolutely flawless 10 out of 10 soundtrack and crank that heat up, oh, I'm funny, to a 100. Before we get started, I want to quickly talk about how in recent years, the game's music has been written off as butt rock, with the whole Sonic was never good meme, which I don't think is fair due to the sheer amount of genre and cultural influences used to make this that even expand out of the umbrella of rock, with smooth suave jazz, banging techno club fusion, rap, sure a little cheesy, and among plenty of others. Yeah, I can understand and respect that maybe you aren't a fan of the game, but by the end of the video, I hope to at least give you an appreciation or at least some understanding where I'm coming from in regards to just how great of a soundtrack this is and how passionate the composers were to give this their all and truly create something special. With that being said, it's going to be another long one where we're going to be taking our time and going over pretty much everything. So grab a snack, a drink, maybe a blanket, and get comfy, as we're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of the development and behind the scenes of what made Sonic Adventure 2's music the sound of an era. Alright, I'm not going to be getting into the game's general development, as I've already covered that pretty extensively in my other SA2 videos, so if that piques your interest, definitely go check those out. In short, after Sonic Adventure, a small portion, and by small I mean like 20 people made the whole game small, of Sonic Team, consisting of lead director Takashi Iizuka, producer Yuji Naka and company, flew and set up shop in San Francisco, California, forming Sonic Team USA. Sonic Adventure 2 was to take everything SA1 did to the extreme in terms of gameplay, story, music, etc., having an even bigger emphasis on the story, creating the dichotomy between good and evil, which would be expressed in the music as much as the characters, having the music become an extension of the characters and their thoughts, feelings, attitudes, placement in the story, and such. As Senoue put it first when talking about how he wanted to tackle creating this soundtrack, I want to clearly work out the characteristics, storyline, and others with the music even more than ever before. Much like how Sonic Adventure took tons of cultural influences from South America in terms of its levels, Sonic Team USA wanted to do the same with the United States, and more specifically California, taking heavy influence from American culture and iconic landmarks around the Bay Area when creating this. The team had every intention on making this the final bang of the Sonic franchise, putting their complete all into every aspect of the game due to the Dreamcast's public execution in the looming years. You can really tell this was a complete passion project. Much like Sonic Adventure, I picked up the SA2 vinyl printings from Limited Run Games that included this awesome never-before-seen interview with Iizuka and Senoue, talking about the music among other goodies. In the interview, Iizuka goes into how although the team was even smaller, they worked together and in sync for all aspects of the game. When developing Sonic Adventure 2, everyone, the programmers, designers, and planners, sound team members, etc., was all on the same page and working towards the same goal. Each and every day, everyone was a part of a team whose interactions were both personal and professional. All elements of the game were pushed to the exact same direction. Out of every title I have worked on, Sonic Adventure 2 is the one in which everyone moved in sync. That also includes the music, which had a defined direction because the team knew what kind of music to make. Speaking of the music team, let's talk about them. The composition trio of Jun Senoue, Fumie Kumatani, and Kenichi Takoi returned from Sonic Adventure, now expanding to a 4-team, adding Tomoya Ohtani, who started his work with Sega composing the music for 1999's Choo Choo Rocket for the Dreamcast. And in terms of Sonic Adventure 2, he's the guy to thank for the Knuckles raps, as he composed all of them. Ohtani is incredibly important in shaping the future sound of Sonic come Sonic 06, as the lead sound director torch would be passed from Senoue to him, as he's pretty much spearheaded the composition of every mainline Sonic game since 06. Back on Adventure 2, Senoue came back in his role as lead sound director, and while he did take the reins for a majority of the soundtrack, it was actually split up quite differently from Sonic Adventure, where for that game, Senoue and company worked together on the different acts of each stage, where you would have a composer take, say, 2 acts out of SPEEDShighway, and another would take the third. As an example, this is actually what happened with SPEEDShighway. Senoue did the main composition and work for Act 1 Run Through the Speed Highway and Act 3 At Dawn, while Kumatani led the composition for Act 2 Going Down. And with that comes one of the biggest separations between Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2's music. Since in SA2, each character has their own respective set of stages that are an extension of the character's personality and also used as an arm for overall storytelling. Instead of Sonic Adventure's philosophy of having 6 characters share the same overall stages, in Sonic Adventure 2, the 4 composers split themselves up and worked on their own quote-unquote corner, or character's set of stages, and that character's reflective genre, which is also how we're going to be unpacking the music in this video. These corners expand to actual locations due to the composers carrying out their recordings across the globe, with 4 major studios being in San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, and Tokyo. They all worked out a mix of the 4, but for example, Kumatani, who worked in the jazz and techno of Rouge and Shadow, based most of her composition work in New York and Tokyo. Ohtani, who did the heavy hip-hop basis of Knuckles, worked mainly out of New York. Senoue, who led the more rock-based characters and brought back a lot of the same Japanese rock fusion influences of the late 1980s and 90s with T-Square, Cassiope, and Masayoshi Takadana, along with also taking some inspiration from the heavier grunge and garage rock that was prevalent throughout the late 90s, early 2000s. Those taking the form of Sonic, Tails, and Eggman, etc., which he worked on in San Francisco and Los Angeles. While Takoi, who worked on the events and a lot of the odds and ends on the soundtrack, didn't exactly specify which studio he worked at specifically, I think it's safe to assume that he worked out a mix of the 4 of them though. Senoue goes more into detail here, discussing their thought process and tackling the different music and genres of the 6 different playable characters, which also extends to their vocal themes. I think that we've produced the compositions, separating the musicality respectively, and showed the tempo feeling in playing the game as well. The livelier and crisper rock than previous work for Sonic, the essence of club style focusing on techno and Shadow, the takeover of the program bass rock which was popular in the previous work for Tails, the minimal expansion with the industrial style for Eggman, the hip-hop grooviness for Knuckles, and last but not least, taking the tension into account while also showing a little glamour with jazz style for Rouge, by the fact that she is a female spy. Those were the impressions. Before getting into the characters, I want to use a quick quote from Kumatani when talking about her thoughts when listening to the soundtrack when it was first completed, and the tenacious no limits approach the composers used when making this. When I listened to the soundtrack, which was finished as CDs with the high level of completion, in addition to the very rich variety that there will be no limits, rock, ska punk, pop, hip hop, techno, industrial, and jazz, I ended up feeling beneficial. I felt the hot sound made with the energies of 3 people in the soundtrack of SA1, but I think the soundtrack this time is full of compositions that let me feel. Those energies have transformed into deliberately smooth and real sound. Please enjoy it, alright? Oh, come on. Can you get any better? When any Sonic fan hears that whistle, they know exactly what they're in for. The returning cast of Sonic Adventure, who had previous character themes, so Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, for the uninitiated, come back with these phenomenal remix vocal tracks that not only perfectly encapsulated the characters from SA1, but they doubled down on it, making the music in this game as powerful of a storytelling tool, along with the actual script. As these vocal tracks, while being remixed, are actually key pieces of character development from Sonic Adventure to Sonic Adventure 2, completely matching their attitudes, moods, and goals. Perfect example of this being in Sonic Adventures It Doesn't Matter. It's a lot slower and more serious, as in my view, Sonic's arc in Sonic Adventure was a coming-of-age story transition from the classics to the now modern style, where he learns is that it's okay sometimes to rely on your friends and work together to get the job done, which is learnt the hard way throughout SA1. While in Sonic Adventure 2, the theme song's tone is way more carefree and naturally confident, that feeling like, yeah, no matter what happens, I can do it, and at the end of the day, everything's gonna be alright. For SA2 comparatively though, I always felt instead of the character himself maturing, as he already went through his arc somewhat in Sonic Adventure, it was more having him react to his environment and be a constant in the story, honestly taking a bit of a backseat for the true main protagonist of the game. Which is freaking awesome! This is all from the song, remember guys. You know they killed it when the argument is over which version of the song is better. For a person of true taste like myself, of course. I love both equally as they represent Sonic perfectly in each of their respective stories and video games. I'm going to get into Tails and Knuckles' theme once we get to that section of the video, but when talking about the returning characters, Senoue and Iizuka had some pretty interesting things to say, with Senoue saying that he wanted the characters to purposefully retain the same lyrics, so it would show their attitudes didn't change, which Iizuka 100% agreed with, to the point of not even wanting them to be remixed, which Iizuka actually jokes about, how Senoue was incredibly insistent on remixing and giving each character character their own melody. Senoue took the lead on It Doesn't Matter once again, basically bringing back everyone including Tony Harnell, who we really went into on the Sonic Adventure video, and you'll be seeing a lot of him in this. The two big mentions going forward I want to talk about are bassist and close friend of Senoue's, Takashi Tanada, who worked on Sonic Adventure, but he really influenced the music of Sonic Adventure 2, giving all of its tracks those rich and throaty backings due to his bass slapping technique. Which, if you really want to see the difference, I highly recommend checking out Sonic Adventure's Choose Your Buddy slap bass version versus its finger bass version. In short, there are two different techniques of playing the bass. The other guy I also want to mention is drummer Katsuji, who was brought in for Sonic Adventure 2, replacing Sonic Adventure's drummer Hirohama, and previously played the drums on Japanese thrash metal band Gargoyle in the 1980s till present, along with another Japanese rock band called the Cro-Magnons, which has been active since 2006. The guy just freaking killed it throughout the whole soundtrack. There's not much else to say. Both of these guys had a pretty long tenure with Crush 40, with Tanada, who is still the primary bassist, taking the reins from Naoto Shibata in 2001. Shibata did most of the bass work for SA1, and Katsuji working with Crush 40 from 2001 to 2005, so basically up until Sonic 06. While you may think that Naoto Shibata and Hirohama may have had a falling out with Senoue, it was actually just because they had commitments at the time of Sonic Adventure 2, which I actually learned this from the 2008 website called JuneSenoue.com. As for It Doesn't Matter, I'm not going to go into where this is seen again since, well, it's a remix, so where the SA1 version is, the SA2 version is going to be too. That being said, I have to talk about the event Let's Make It, which takes place right before City Escape and is a remix of the SA2 version's melody of It Doesn't Matter. Speaking of event Let's Make It, I just want to say it is straight up sacrilegious to not play this before listening to City Escape. I could sit here and gush about this one little 44-second event clip that is perfect and truly gives me chills whenever I hear it, going with those super upbeat horn fanfare and that guitar riff kicking in right when Sonic jumps out of the helicopter in one of the coolest freaking scenes to this day, and perfectly sets what Sonic has been up to since his last appearance, with the hero story and overall the story of Sonic Adventure 2. This track gives me chills down my spine still, and we're just getting started. What do I even say at this point? A song so great and iconic, I don't even think there's much of an argument to say this is as recognizable as Mario 1-1, to the point people have tried to replace the Star-Spangled Banner with City Escape as the United States national anthem. When Senoue was asked about his inspiration for making the track, he had this to say: "I got to see San Francisco, and this is what inspired Escape from the City. We'd already decided to have a scene at the beginning of the game showing Sonic escaping from a helicopter and then sliding down a hill. I created the song with the momentum and tempo benefiting such a scene." Now you may be surprised, but Iizuka had as much of an impact in making this fantastic track as he was completely blown away when coming to California, and he wanted to make a stage that put the bright and carefree California vibe into the game. And actually from the beginning, Senoue wanted vocal tracks for every single stage, and while in concept this would have been sick, I do think it would have lost its impact, which Iizuka also thought when he suggested about putting them in specific stages like the first or last to achieve a great impact. I'll quote Iizuka here saying it perfectly, that City Escape was a stage that exudes that colorful Californian culture, so we decided the stage would leave a lasting impression by having a voiced track. That's why City Escape's theme has vocals in it. The track fits perfectly, giving this carefree, bright optimism while shredding through the streets of San Francisco, and that feeling certainly couldn't have been captured without Ted Poley and Tony Harnell coming back to do the vocal track together for it. I found it interesting how Senoue also wanted Harnell originally to do the lead vocals for the track, but felt a brighter voice would fit, so they called up Poley, who also did Big's theme for SA1, to do the lead vocals, and had Harnell do the harmonies and vocal fills to bring in Sonic's essence. And once you get far enough in the level in that Act 2 gun truck run, the Mad Convoy race hits, and completely contrasts with the free-flowing feeling of City Escape with these hectic, blood-pumping, harsh guitar riffs that perfectly match the rush of getting chased by this giant truck through the streets of San Francisco while trying to hit the trick ramps to keep ahead. It's fantastic. I think it's worth mentioning that Sonic Adventure 2 also had a large amount of demo tracks for City Escape, from the three main prototypes being released before launch, those being Sonic Adventure 2 The Trial, which was the earliest prototype known that was a demo disc bundled with the release of Phantasy Star Online about 6 months before the release of Sonic Adventure 2 in Japan. The second demo being Sonic Adventure 2 Preview, which was a more developed demo compared to the trial and was sent to the press in order to gain publicity about 3 months away from SA2's release, and the final demo being Sonic Adventure 2 Trial version, not to be mistaken as The Trial, and is the most developed demo, being dated about a month before the final Japanese release of Sonic Adventure 2, that was given out to the Japanese stores for a hands-on in-store demo in lieu of SA2's release. With that being said, City Escape has had 2 different demos during the development of the track. The most recent and seemingly the earliest being the version uploaded by the Sonic YouTube channel in 2020, showcasing an instrumental by Senoue, missing a lot of the backing guitars and also having the bass sound a lot more prominent to me. What I found really interesting with this was, it's also where they pulled the ending part of City Escape Act 1 from Sonic Generations. Atop that, we also have another instrumental prototype for City Escape that was used in the Sonic Adventure 2 The Trial and SA2 preview, which sounds pretty close to the final song, although having a guitar play on top of the song instead of the vocals. Big shout out to SPEEPSHighway for uploading this on YouTube and responding to me on Twitter to point me in the right direction for checking out these demos. Check them out, and I'll play a bit of the demo here now. City Escape has been all over the franchise, but was fully redone for both the modern and classic versions of Sonic Generations, and getting a full orchestral remake in the Sonic Adventure music experience, which is phenomenal, among many other games in the franchise. Oh, surely after this, the soundtrack must never reach the heights of City Escape, right? I'm gonna keep this short. God single-handedly came down and touched Senoue's guitar in this track, making this not only my all-time favorite track in the franchise, but in my opinion, I'd agree this is one of, if not, the greatest piece of music ever created for a video game. I am not even kidding. I love this track so much, I listen to it pretty much every day, and don't even get me started on those holy electric guitar riffs, combined with the horns from East Fourth Horns, who also previously did Amy's My Sweet Passion for SA1. That's the Way I Like It is perfect, and leans heavily into that lively, crisp rock that Senoue was describing earlier that just exudes happiness and freedom, which in the story contrasts perfectly with Sonic in jail in the stage happening while he's breaking out of a military outpost. This is Senoue, Tanada, and drummer Hishinori Kumamoru at their absolute best. Kumamoru helped complete the soundtrack with Katsuji and worked on other big titles like 1994's Virtua Fighter for the Sega Saturn and Sonic Heroes. Listen, I know this video isn't about my opinions on the OST, but more development, but Lord have mercy, I have to talk about the final 18 seconds of this track, where it's just pure bliss hearing this electric guitar shred upon each other, that whenever this plays in the car, I headbang no matter who is watching. And then, bam, right off the rocket. And much like City Escape, Metal Harbor has this real abrasive, intense track, also done by the usuals for Sonic, this time swapping out Kumamoru with Katsuji to create this excellent counterpiece for That's the Way I Like It, in the form of Can't Stop, So What, which fits perfectly as you're snowboarding through an air vent looking thing to the goal. God, it is amazing. Metal Harbor also had a demo track released by the Sonic YouTube channel in 2020 as a thank you for raising $6,000 in their extra live stream. This demo, while not exactly specified where in the track's development timeline it was, sounds quite late as it's just a tad more bassy and some of the guitar riffs are a little bit shorter than the final product. I'll play a quick clip here. Now I could sit here for another 3 hours doting all over Sonic's tracks as they're all as fantastic as Metal Harbor and City Escape in my eyes, all perfectly fitting with their setting, no matter if it's the intense adrenaline rush off Prison Island and Won't Stop Just Go 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 for Green Forest, with Senoue, Tanada, and Katsuji just going absolutely nuts on this track, or the stealthy spy-like theme of Keys to the Ruin for Pyramid Cave, with those up-front electric guitars and that nice touch of the accordion to bring contrast with the guitars. And some of the best moments in the game being where you're grinding across the rails outside, seeing the pyramids and such as you fly by. Unstable World for Crazy Gadget's more serious and dire feeling the track gives off, never forgetting to give that spacey sci-fi atmosphere, or Highway in the Sky for Final Rush, which is another one of my favorites. It's just pure adrenaline, using a lot of the same themes of Crazy Gadget, but turned up even more with the final showdown looming with the bells ringing in the background, and those real nasty guitar riffs that give a feeling like no other when you nail a risky jump from rail to rail while doing tricks. It's a high of its own. Yeah! These were all done by Senoue, Tanada, and Katsuji, and what's amazing about all of these tracks is they still stick to that livelier, crisper rock we spoke about at its core, really coming off as extensions of the character and their mood or feeling at the time in the story, and more specifically, the stage. Senoue talked about the process of this when saying how it differed from Sonic Adventure and its catering towards the 6 characters in one stage, saying, "One of the biggest changes when composing for Sonic Adventure was the initial concept that we composed the songs to match the image of the game's world, stage, and areas. Whereas in SA2, since the game is split into the Team Dark and Hero, it was then decided which musical aspects should be given to each character, and then compose their tracks from there. The music tells the story just as much in my eyes, and really makes the whole adventure feel cohesive." The rest of Sonic's tracks didn't feature any demo takes, excluding Won't Stop Just Go Go for Green Forest, which did also get its own demo track rather late in development, showing up in SA2 preview, with a track that is mixed a tad different, along with having a much weaker lead guitar than the one in the final game. Sonic's other tracks, excluding the previously mentioned City Escape, are featured a decent amount throughout the franchise, with Won't Stop Just Go Go appearing in Sonic Generations, and a remixed version of Highway in the Sky reappearing in Shadow the Hedgehog's level, The Ark. Believe in Myself is another fantastic track, and I personally like the second version just a tad more. It follows suit similarly to Sonic's, where in SA1, it's quite slower, giving for a tad more timid and non-confident version. Feel like it's ending the title of Believe in Myself with a question mark. Regarding Tails' characterization, where in SA2, the more upbeat tempo and pronounced electric sitar right up front from Sonic Adventure's version helps solidify the title as more of a statement, compared to a wish in the prior game, solidifying his newfound confidence in himself and extending from his arc in SA1. Tails' plan to act and take action throughout Sonic Adventure 2 are such an awesome thing to see and how it parallels with his previous interpretation. Now he's the guy that gets the team up to space, and he's the guy who steps up to the plate to take down Eggman in Sonic's presumed death. His character is fantastic in this game, and this gorgeous track accompanies it. Again, with all the same instruments coming back, this time with the inclusion of an electric piano, which is also played by Senoue atop the sitar, guitar, and composition. Another big change was Karen Blake not coming back for the sequel, but instead English singer and actress Kaz Silver, who appeared in both 1997's Malcolm and Melvin and Babe, He Calls Me, to name a few. The SA2 version of Believe in Myself is actually the most commonly used compared to Sonic, whereas SA1 version is mostly used. Tails' SA2 remix appears in Lost World, Sega All-Stars Racing, Team Sonic Racing, among others. Funny enough, although he was added pretty much last minute as an appeal to complaining fans, he actually has some of the best music in the game in my opinion. All of his tracks focus on that takeover of program bass rock, as Senoue called it earlier, with a focus on Tanada's excellent bass work, while also mixing in that hard rock approach of Sonic's tracks with a lot of electric synth work that is mostly pronounced in tracks like This Way Out for Prison Lane or Down in the Bass for Hidden Bass. But overall, what I absolutely adore about Tails' music is just how it's that real hard rock still, but just a slight tone lower than Sonic's, which I feel was done intentionally to contrast the sidekick dynamic of Tails looking up to Sonic, much like how the music is right there next to him. This Way Out for Prison Lane is one of my favorites that gives us some really gnarly guitar riffs mixed in with the synth work, while Rumbling Highway from Mission Street sheds the synth work for the inclusion of that classic Senoue electric guitar and sitar too, which I always found was a nice touch and give a more laid-back feeling although being in the nightlife of San Francisco. Route 101 on the other hand being just a straight guitar shred with the horns in the background and such. While Down in the Bass for Hidden Bass parallels a lot of Pyramid Cave and feeling like the secret infiltration of Eggman's Pyramid Bass, also weaving in that sweet synth work atop that insane guitar shredding. And there is nothing better than getting a huge chain and hearing Tails get all excited right when that synth kicks in. Perfect. Izuku goes into the thought process when creating levels that somewhat parallel each other in scenery, along with separating their musical aspects here. For Sonic Adventure 2, the stages change depending on the character being played. With the desert stage, for example, we prepared 3 different versions, one for Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Therefore, we had to create 3 distinct tracks for each of the 3 characters, while maintaining the atmosphere of the desert. I think this resulted in a great flow for the game. And last but certainly not least by any means, my favorite Tails track, and up there as one of my favorites in the game, being on the edge for Eternal Engine, as it just feels like an accumulation of what all the other tracks leading up to his final stage were getting at, with the real heavy standout guitar by Senoue, the mix of the synth work, and keeping that upbeat yet focused vibe throughout the stage. Absolutely excellent track. Tails also had a demo track released for Mission Street, which was included by the Sonic YouTube channel in 2020 during the same Extra Life bundle as Metal Harbor and City Escape that features a rather complete sounding Mission Street, just having a weaker lead guitar and mixing. A lot of Tails' music has been reused, some big examples being the Sonic Adventure music experience where Prison Lane and Mission Street's respective tracks got remade, or Tails' previously mentioned remixes of his theme. Yeah, the only way I can describe this song is incredibly based. Whenever Eggman's theme, Eggman, is used in the game, it perfectly sets up any encounter and still gives him that calculated, evil, and menacing feeling. Albeit a little cheesy, but when's that ever hurt anyone? And it encapsulates his characters so well in this game. The team brought in heavy metal American rock singer Paul Shortino to do the vocals, and is also credited for writing them too. He also worked with 1970s heavy metal rock band Quiet Riot or 1980s Rough Cut, which is another metal band. I love Shortino's gruffer vocals in this that accommodate the industrial rock core of this song so well, especially compared to Polly or Harnell who sang for the Heroes tracks. It makes Eggman even more menacing in my eyes. Senoue thought similarly when talking about Shortino, saying, "We made the keyword of the composition related to Eggman as minimal development with industrial system, but it's Rough Cut's Paul Shortino, who is known for his elegant singing voice performing his theme. Eggman will no doubt work out his master plan even today while humming this." The usual crew for Senoue absolutely killed it as always. As for Eggman's tracks like Iron Gate, which all focus on the industrial and cold and almost metal approach in most stages, that has a major emphasis on heavy lead guitar riffs and even techno blends with its synth work and rather atmospheric arc stages. I think Eggman's stages are not only the best mech stages, but are also very underrated in the music department. I should also mention this as I too was confused about this originally when the term industrial rock is used. It refers to a genre of alternative rock that blends typical hard rock music with abrasive and aggressive electronic music. It came about in the 1970s and became mainstream in the 1990s through 2000s with bands like Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson. Obviously, all of Eggman's tracks use a similar format, with Iron Gate and Sand Ocean especially dipping heavy into that techno side of industrial rock, while personally my two favorite tracks being Trespasser for Lost Colony and especially Soaring Over Space for Cosmic Wall, which is also one of my favorite mech stages and probably my favorite Eggman track in the game, setting the atmosphere perfectly for each stage. That really gives this creepy feeling of isolation and industrialism to their respective stages on the arc, with Eggman pretty much being all alone there in these space stages. While earlier in the story, Crush 'Em All for Weapons Bed on the other hand contrasts pretty heavily with the rest, featuring a way more upbeat and aggressive track. That's due to, well, Eggman charging headfirst into a military base. His vocal track has been featured in quite a few games, most notably Shadow the Hedgehog, where it was remixed by Remix Factory, Sonic Generations, Team Sonic Racing, and Sega Superstar Tennis, which I have a lot of memories of for some reason.
Okay.
While Ohtani did compose the music for Knuckles' stages, Tomoya came back to compose the remix for Unknown From Me, this time much like the other remixed vocal tracks, keeping a higher tempo, and while Knuckles doesn't really have an arc in SA2, the new remix certainly gives him a much more mature feeling with the emphasis on hip-hop compared to the more jazzy original. Tomoya speaks about the direction he wanted to take the remix in, saying, "The composition concept this time was something that I should also say as the adherence of characters and musicality, that further expresses each character's image musically, that even more reflects the musicality in the appearing stages as well, and in which one can imagine the firm images inside the flow of the story too. The pursuit of genres was done so much that the ideas coming out from everyone and the completed compositions are incomparable with the previous work." Senoue talks about this, saying how they actually re-recorded all of the materials for the track at a higher interval than before, and honestly, I'd say that Unknown From Me got the biggest change up, even altering the lyrics of the track, which didn't really happen with Sonic and Tails' themes. While Marlon Saunders from Sonic Adventure's rendition did return, there was also a few new faces added to the mix, like Chutaro Mortake on guitar, and Koji Orita doing the tenor and alto saxophones. And oh, how can we forget you? The living meme, Haunted P. He's mainly known for his Knuckles stage raps, as he does all the music vocal work for Knuckles in this game, along with the wonderful controversy he got himself into, which I'm not going to go into, but if interested, I recommend checking out Splash Dash's video on it, as it's quite a story. It seems that Ohtani was the one who actually found and connected with Haunted P. As Senoue put it, Ohtani teamed up with a rapper from the East Coast to create a hip-hop sound that was targeting fans worldwide. Anyways, what was super funny to me was how Haunted P, when doing the vocal work for Unknown for Me, and the stages, actually never met Marlon Saunders. He was taken into an empty recording studio to record his lines, where Saunders recorded at a much later date. I personally think SA2's Unknown for Me gets the slight edge between the two actually, as I like the more fast and funky tempo, but they're both great. Senoue was quite happy with how it turned out too, saying, "Tokoi's Knuckles theme song is even funkier than the first game, and it's quite a good mix." Now as for Ohtani, who did all the stage compositions for Knuckles, he was incredibly excited to be able to work on Sonic Adventure 2, saying how he was happy to participate in the sequel of the masterpiece, that also had quite a bit of pressure on him, which I think he hit out of the park. Ohtani really used the rap vocals as a way of expanding the storytelling throughout the stages, having Knuckles talk about his thoughts on the events going on in the story at the time, and I feel it works perfectly here. He gets into this himself, saying how the role of rap was ideal for making the character of Knuckles as the smooth, rhythmic flows helped link the game's story and its action stages together. I always appreciated how Knuckles' stage music had a much more chill vibe compared to the non-stop hard rock of Sonic and Tails. And actually, Ohtani said himself he took a lot of inspiration from the lo-fi genre with the soundtrack, which he specifically talks about how Dive Into the Mellow for Aquatic Mine was the most quote-unquote lo-fi track he made. Although I do think every stage blends this genre in some capacity though. For the lo-fi genre, he was heavily influenced by hip-hop maker at the time, DJ Crush, who was one of the pioneers of Japanese hip-hop in the 1980s to 1990s. All the tracks for Knuckles are absolutely great and are some of the most iconic in the franchise, and feature Ohtani's composition with Haunted P's raps, as an example, A Ghost for Pumpkin Soup for Pumpkin Hill, or the previously mentioned Aquatic Mine. Speaking of Pumpkin Hill, Senoue had high praise for the track, saying how, "I really like Pumpkin Hill's track because it has a musical taste that wasn't in the previous game, and really helped cement the feel of Knuckles' levels, which was great for his character." Deeper, for Death Chamber, features the most accredited musicians for Knuckles' stage tracks, with the inclusion of a guitar, trombone, tenor, and alto saxophones. Even Tokoi helped out with the brass arrangement for this track. My personal favorite Knuckles track is tied between Space Trip Steps for Meteor Herd or Aquatic Mine, as I love the more fast-paced, spacier, funky beats of Meteor Herd and the vocal samples in it, while Aquatic Mine is fantastic with the lo-fi, chill feeling it gives off. Knuckles' stage music hasn't really appeared anywhere else in the franchise, except Pumpkin Hill's track, which was reused in Sonic Runners a few years later. As for the vocal track, now that has seen some use, with the SA2 version being in Sega All-Stars Racing. Also, funny thing, that Sonic Adventure 2 battle on the GameCube had an ESRB rating with mild lyrics because in Kick the Rock for Wild Canyon, the lyrics say damn, which only appears again in Shadow the Hedgehog. And while we didn't get any actual quote-unquote demo tracks per se, I did think it was interesting how Aquatic Mine is on the SA2 preview disc, but it's just not used. Want to talk about underappreciated? Rouge's music and stages are some of my favorite throughout the whole game, and personally, I like a little bit better than all of Knuckles' for the most part. No disrespect to the other composers, but in my eyes, Fumie Kumatani made Sonic Adventure 2 something that went from a hard rock thrill ride to something timeless and incredible with her composition on Rouge, Shadow, and a lot of the other tracks she did. Starting with Rouge, her vocal theme, Fly in the Freedom, and this actually goes for all of her music, features the most amount of credited musicians due to just how many instruments are used to make these real smooth, suave jazz stylings. That's just absolutely phenomenal and incredibly refreshing, especially in contrast with the fast tempo hard rock core of the other characters. Fly in the Freedom is up there as one of the best vocal tracks in the game in my opinion, and I think the big reason for this is due to the sheer amount of instrumentation used, with actually some people coming back from Sonic Adventure's rendition of Unknown for Me, like Bashiri Johnson, who did the percussion work on both Knuckles' SA1 track and Fly in the Freedom, or East Fourth Horns, who worked on both My Sweet Passion and previously mentioned Metal Harbor for SA2, along with a lot of newcomers who really killed it and gave this track the impact it has. Starting with the two vocalists that did this track, Tabitha Fair, who's an American singer and background vocalist that, including Fly in the Freedom, also did all the chorus work for Rouge's stage tracks, along with also working with U2, Lady Gaga, Michael McDonald, Amy Grant, and Celine Dion. As for the other vocalist who did the backing vocals for Rouge's theme, blues rock and roll artist Todd Cooper Cooper, who also worked with American country band Randy Rogers or Canadian musician David Foster, among others. Along with also including the traditional guitars, some interesting instruments were used to shape the sound of this, with the wood bass, which is another name for the large double bass, along with the sweet use of a vibraphone. The wood bass was done by jazz bassist David Fink, while the vibraphone was done by Jean Baptiste. Kumatani talks about how she loved the sweet voices of both Fair and Cooper, and that fit perfectly with Rouge, and as she puts it, they gave a bewitching atmosphere, and she really wanted to use the vibraphone in the theme to give a more jazzy feeling. I think it was perfect, as the instruments like the vibraphone give this track a lot richer of a feel and really lean into that sneaky spy-like characterization that Rouge has, along with the fantastic lyrics which help flesh her character out even more so. As for Rouge's stage tracks, they all consist of pretty much the same musicians working on all of them, with the inclusion of organ player Albert Menendez. I love all of her stage tracks as again, they really help diversify the rock-based soundtrack, with stages like Bright Sound for Dry Lagoon. They give this real low-key jazzy vibe to them that you just can't help but groove with. They're absolutely excellent, and they're also an excellent counterpart to Knuckles, who has these real upbeat rap tracks, essentially spinning that on its head, giving us the hero versus dark dichotomy throughout the game. That being said, Rouge's music is incredibly diversified, keeping that same silky smooth jazz core with the rather upbeat tracks like Lovely Gate 3, where you can really hear that organ shine with her infiltrating Eggman's desert base, or personally my favorite Rouge track and stage, I'm a Spy for Security Hall, as the setting of this level is incredibly frantic trying to find all the Chaos Emeralds and get off the island before it explodes, but keeps this real calm feeling with the instrument use like the organ, while the horns and such keep the tempo up. I also love how well this fits, as you really feel like a spy in this stage, dodging the laser beams and such to grab the emeralds. 34 degrees north, 12 degrees east for Mad Space 2 is another absolutely great one that I just can't get enough of. And what I also found kind of interesting is this is the only space stage that doesn't really have any synth work in it to give that sci-fi feeling, but just fits so perfectly. Kumatani absolutely knocked Rouge's tracks out of the park and deserves all and much more recognition that she gets for her music, as it's truly what sets this game apart from the rest. While Flying the Freedom is not really used at all in future games, some of her stages do get new renditions, like Egg Quarters, which is remixed for Club Rouge in Sonic Battle, or Security Hall's track, which appears remixed as Rouge's ultimate theme in Team Sonic Racing. The crux of Sonic Adventure 2, and quite honestly, the main character of the plot, and one of the best characters in the franchise. Enter Shadow the Hedgehog, and his killer vocal theme, Throw It All Away. All of Shadow's music in this game is absolutely phenomenal and top tier, and Kumatani did not miss a single mark with this character one bit. For Throw It All Away and all of Shadow's stage tracks, Kumatani actually teamed up with Ohtani of Co-Fusion, which added more of a techno flavor to the tracks, giving them all their own special essence, as Senoue put it. Tani was a key member in making these tracks as unique and fantastic as they are, as he's a music producer of house and techno music, and he's also worked on Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's soundtrack, Space Invaders, Team Sonic Racing, among others. You can really tell Kumatani and Tani gave Shadow's tracks their absolute maximum and really tried to create something abstract and foreign to what else resides on the soundtrack, which fits Shadow's character quite well. She spoke about how Shadow's compositions were completed as unique compositions that adopted original ideas and experimental techniques, and they both used all of their stamina for continuing the pursuit of the absolute best sound possible, which normally went till dawn. She was determined to make something that surpassed her already phenomenal work on Sonic Adventure. Solely talking about Throw It All Away though, it's an absolutely excellent track as it mixes techno, club, and grunge rock together to form this track that completely embodies the character and his mystery throughout the game. As Senoue said, Shadow's theme was made for a character whose personality is dark and mysterious, so the tracks were mysterious and inorganic. This is a track that truly enhances the character and its lyrics, and the impact is made right when it's first played. You know this guy means business and is something completely otherworldly compared to what Sonic and the crew have seen before. The tone encapsulated in this theme would not have been perfected if it wasn't for lead vocalist Everett Bradley, who does all of the vocal tracks for Shadow and his respective stages. Bradley is an American singer, songwriter, and actor among other things, working with quite large names like American rock singers Bruce Springsteen, John Bon Jovi, who he is actually currently touring with right now, Hall & Oates, and female artist Cyndi Lauper. Bradley's vocals perfectly bring this mysterious edge to the track that really cements it as something truly special, along with Kumatani and Tani's excellent composition and sound production. Kumatani had a lot to say in regards to getting Bradley to understand the character and where they were aiming for when forming the sound of Throw It All Away. When I told the singer Everett Bradley, Shadow is a lonely character who lives inside the darkness with a little pathetic feeling in the air. He turned into that role perfectly and ended up singing smoothly with full voice. We aimed at expressing Shadow's interior of his destructive heart with sound, and it's a song that we completed while communicating many times over. While Throw It All Away blends the grunge rock with this techno house genre, his stages tend to dip into one genre more than the other depending on the level. This is actually due to Radical Highway and Skyrail's respective tracks, Vengeance Is Mine and Mr. Unsmiley being composed by Senoue and his usual group, instead of Kumatani. Vengeance Is Mine actually being the first track Senoue worked on for Shadow's section, even before the vocal track, and it also being his favorite track in the game. He worked on these first to set the template for Kumatani as to what kind of atmosphere was needed for Shadow's stages. Azuka had a lot to say about this track too, as it too was his favorite non-vocal track, as when he was designing levels for the game, the constant guitar riffs got stuck in his head to the point that even after he left work he could still hear the track. Therefore, when he thinks of Sonic Adventure 2, this is what came to mind for him. The same thing happened with Skyrail, which if you haven't watched my video on Shadow and Rouge yet, I highly recommend checking that out, because as we know from that, this was Sonic's stage originally and well, his music too, at some point in development, which was then given to Shadow once they decided to make him a playable character. Rhythm and Balance for White Jungle, and The Supernatural for Final Chase on the other hand, are absolute club bangers, and you can just see how hard Kumatani and Tani went on these tracks, with White Jungle having a very upbeat, hectic tempo to it, with Shadow escaping running through the jungles of Prison Island and all. And I've always loved the little monkey sound effects that just hit that inorganic jungly atmosphere home even more so, atop the great characterization in the lyrics of Shadow basically talking to himself and his conscience. Bradley does a phenomenal job on this track too, giving a much more harsh and nasty tone in his vocals compared to Throw It All Away. The guy just absolutely killed it in everything he's in. As for Final Chase, which is my favorite Shadow track, much like Throw It All Away, it blends that heavy club sound with these super heavy abrasive guitar riffs, and Bradley's vocal backings talking about being the ultimate life form and these distorted vocals in the background too, just give this very unnatural and intense sci-fi feeling that just adds to the mystery surrounding the character in the game, which could also reflect his confused memories surrounding his misunderstood vengeance for Maria. It just works so perfectly for setting the stage of the finale of Dark Story, as it's a rush between Sonic and Shadow to the end. It really just gets your blood pumping. The track is just an absolute headbanger for me no matter where I am, and it's one of my favorite tracks in the whole game too. In terms of demo tracks, Vengeance Is Mine got a demo released in the same Sonic YouTube bundle, leaning heavily on that synth in this version, with the guitars also being a lot weaker and having a heavier filter over them compared to the final product. Take a quick listen. A lot of Shadow's vocal tracks have reappeared throughout the franchise, with Throw It All Away reappearing in Sonic Generations, Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic Forces, and Sega Superstars Tennis, among others. While his stage tracks like Vengeance Is Mine, which actually gets a full redone stage on the 3DS version of Generations, reappears along with getting a really cool mashup with Westopolis and Sonic Forces. Rhythm and Balance gets a remix in Forces too.
You never cease to surprise me, Blue Hedgehog.
Now, we all know what happens at the end of each story, so let's talk about how you set up a frickin' final fight at the end. The event, Sonic vs. Shadow, which was composed by Kumatani, is a piece that perfectly sets the stage for their fight in the most ominous and threatening way possible, with these very loud, dark, and brooding horns that continue to get faster and faster as Sonic and Shadow speed up while they quip at each other, leading into a phenomenal climax that heightens the stakes and hype to the highest degree, coming to a peak transitioning for the final fight. This event is how you set up a final boss. It is truly something fitting of a final showdown, which all leads to one of the most iconic and climactic fights in the franchise.
Before this is over, I'll show you the true power of chaos control!
It all coming to this, for now at least. A fight between Sonic versus Shadow, with the Earth hanging in the balance and the Ark's cannon being primed for launch. To say this track, for True Story, shows what an epic and grandiose final duel between the two should be is an understatement. Mix this with the real intense vocals of Everett Bradley once again, this also being another one of the many strokes of perfection from Kumatani and Tani. The lyrics in this too are absolutely fantastic, as they reflect both sides of the story. As an example, to the pure body, to the perfect existence, comparing the dichotomy between Sonic and Shadow. The pure body referring to Sonic being the fastest natural hedgehog alive, and the perfect existence referring to Shadow's status and inorganic creation as the ultimate life form. It's just incredible what they were able to do with this track. For True Story would reappear as a remix in Sonic Generations, in the rival battle against Shadow, where you can hear the distorted lyrics a lot better there. Now before we get to the juicy music of the final story, I want to take a quick second to appreciate some odds and ends stuff, starting with the fricking banging advertisement menu screen remixes of the main riff of Live and Learn. That would be standout tracks themselves on a normal soundtrack, but get overshadowed due to just how great everything else is on here. They all have this serious intensity to them that brings so much energy to their menu screens, no matter if it's the stage select, options menu, or what have ya. The four mentioned being SA2 in the Groove, Version B, Version C, and Rhythmic Passage, which were all composed by Senoue and his normal group of musicians. SA2 in the Groove actually being one of my favorite tracks in the game just for how hard it hits and shreds, while still keeping that groovy feeling of Sonic Adventure's Choose Your Buddy or Funky Groove Makes You Hot. There's just something so stylized and exciting when you boot up a save and hear this play while the selected character gives a recap of the story, or the more drawn out, funky guitar riffs, horns, and drums of Rhythmic Passage while on the options screen. It's just absolutely great stuff. Going off of that too, the boss tracks are all fantastic, whether it's the character versus theme called Suitable Opponent, the gun boss fight track called Gun Mobile, King Bombu's track, and my personal favorite, the Egg Golem battle track called Masters of the Desert, which is the same as King Bombu's but with some extra guitars on it. All of these were done by Senoue and his team, with some of them actually being reused later in the franchise, like the Gun Mobile fight in Shadow the Hedgehog. How could I forget these cute little guys? But unfortunately, there isn't too much to talk about in regards to the Chao tracks compared to SA1, but I do want to at least acknowledge the music Kumatani made for these, as it boasts so many more tracks from the Hero, Dark, Neutral Gardens, Chao Karate, Professor Omochao's theme, the Chao Kindergarten theme, and the race themes, etc, etc. We'd be here for another 30 minutes of me going on over all of these. You all know how great they all are, but real quick, I want to mention some interesting trivia about one of the more iconic tracks, being the Chao Lobby theme, which was reused from Sonic Adventure called Let's Get This Party Started, that I forgot to mention in the previous video is actually a sample from the 1980s show with the A-Team, where in the song it says lay in the wax and spin in the sounds. Well, look at this.
Lay in the wax and spin in the sounds. This is the old Diamondback, Pickles Bob Steele. Lay in the wax and spin in the sounds for you.
And the last thing I want to quickly touch on in this section is the fantastic event tracks that just perfectly set the atmosphere and stage for whatever is going on in the story at that moment, and have become iconic parts of the Sonic fanbase. The event tracks were all done by Takoi, Tomoya Ohtani, and Kumatani. And while I went over my absolute favorite with the event Let's Make It Happen, and some other great atmospheric ones like Sonic vs. Shadow, I want to give the spotlight on some of the other ones like Strategy, and gives these rather playful militaristic horns that blend so well with the cutscenes and dialogue when used, giving a bit of seriousness while still holding a lighthearted tone. It's one of my favorites. Another great event track is The Bass, which was also done by Ohtani, being another rather lighthearted and low-key track that just makes all of SA2's comedy delightful when it's used. A great example of its usage is the banter between the hero team on the arc. And while there's two more events I do want to mention, let's wait till it's time for them in a few minutes. This all then leads to Canon's core for the true story, combining all characters, both Hero and Dark, working together into one 3-act rush to stop the immediate doom that is coming in the form of the Arc. That also has some of the most underrated tracks in the game. I never hear anyone talk about these. All 3 acts for Canon's core were composed by Senoue and his musician group. And I really like Scramble for Canon's core, which is the Act 1 track, as it gives that same upbeat hard rock synth approach of Tails' levels, probably because you play as both Tails and Eggman in this section, along with a hint of an orchestral backing, making it really feel like an intense rush to the core that everyone needs to work together to succeed in their goal. My favorite though is certainly Cooperation, or the Act 2 stage for Canon's core. where you play as Knuckles and Rouge, as the real drawn out and long guitar riffs backed by that light synth work really give it this dramatic tone throughout the section that just perfectly fits. Senoue kills it once again, and this is actually one of my favorites from the soundtrack too. As for Act 3, called Deep Inside Of, where you play as Sonic, it fits so perfectly, giving us a piece that fits right in with his other discography from this game, with the super high-tempo hard rock approach that's now mixed in with some orchestral backing to really give a dramatic flair to the stage that's accompanied with these intense drums banging in the background. I just love how they knock the atmosphere completely out of the park with these 3 tracks. And then it cuts to one of the most well-executed sections of the whole game in my eyes, where you see the Sonic Adventure stone snakes from Lost World, and Eggman telling you you're on your own now, as Sonic is sliding down the waterfalls much like in SA1, and then Kenichi Tokoi's Event Madness kicks in, giving us an excellent callback to SA1, with Lost World Act 2's Danger Chased by Rock, which he also composed, giving us this real dark and rather scary bit, as like I said in my Sonic Adventure music development video, this track at night scares the crap out of me sometimes. Nonetheless, this perfectly ties both Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 together, also for the player realizing there was much more to the arc than meets the eye. Canon's Core's tracks are another casualty of never being featured anywhere in the franchise since Sonic Adventure 2, but what I found quite interesting is that it seems, according to the Cutting Room Floor's Sonic Adventure 2 page, which is a website that looks at cut content in video games, it seems that Act 2 Cooperation was supposed to be only for Eggman's section of the stage, and Rouge and Knuckles were going to get their own tracks, as the final file name for both Tails and Eggman's stages are C_Core 1, aka Scramble for Canon's Core, and Rouge and Knuckles' section is C_Core 2, aka Cooperation, while Sonic's is called C_Core 5, and the Tokoi Event Madness is C_Core 6. This would infer you to believe we're missing 2 stage tracks, one for Rouge and Knuckles. Pretty interesting to say the least. I imagine this was cut due to time constraints though.
Leave this one to me.
Shadow, what are you doing?
I'll take care of this while you run to get the Chaos Emeralds.
I honestly can't think of just a more flat out badass song to have with this. That again, just feels like a true extension of Shadow. After the talk with Amy and the realization Shadow had with what Maria truly meant, he comes forth as a redeemed character, ready to defend the planet he vowed to destroy, helping the same people he just fought moments earlier, and now facing the parallel to himself, a horrific monster he could have easily became if he went down the wrong path. Supporting Me is a track that gives me the shivers whenever it plays in Sonic Adventure 2, and that's all thanks to Kumatani and Tani, who absolutely killed it on this track with those amazing guitar riffs that just scream a final showdown looming. And then oh my god, it's amazing. Everett Bradley really just knocked it out of the park on this one with his super serious and determined tone, mixed with the spacey club rock blend. It's phenomenal. And let's talk about just how well the lyrics are an extension of Shadow's Redemption Arc 2. And while this may seem just like making Shadow even more badass in this game, it actually really deepens his character arc in this, with it speaking about how Shadow started the arc's descent upon Earth under the false notion he was doing what Maria wanted, by avenging her death, which was the exact opposite of what she actually wanted. Now he's coming forth and undoing the damage he's caused. Or another line like, which foreshadows the ultimate fate at the end of the game, and his strive to fulfill Maria's promise. Supporting Me also has a main riff from Sonic Adventure 2, also foreshadowing the final Hazard fight. This whole section of Shadow's realization and the fight against the Bio Lizard is beautifully done, and Supporting Me just cements it as one of my favorite moments in gaming, period. The track has also gotten quite a few remixes, most notably in the 3DS version of Sonic Generations that actually had the whole boss fight remixed, and in Sonic Forces. You know what's happening when that opening riff hits. A track so legendary throughout gaming that Sonic fan or not, you know that music and those nasty power metal guitar riffs. A song that, unlike Open Your Heart, which pretty much lets you forget about it, excluding the title screen till the end of the game, Live and Learn is built up upon in your face from the moment you open Sonic Adventure 2, all the way up till Supporting Me, getting longer and more pronounced till the true final climax comes in and this hits. I'm sorry I had to do it. The opportunity was too perfect. And yes, this is real, and since I brought it up, let me get it out of the way real quick. This is the version of Live and Learn that's on the Sonic Adventure 2 preview that also has a lot of differences, like the lead guitar in the bridge section of the song missing, along with the overall less reverb and the vocals being replaced with a fucking flute. The flute does have a use though, as it's used as a guide piece for vocalists. In order to keep up with the right notes, vocalists will generally use a flute sample or something similar. Okay, for real though, Live and Learn is a song like no other, that delivers tenfold due to its build-up throughout the whole game, which then comes full circle from the moment Sonic jumps out of the gun helicopter, or Eggman releasing Shadow. It all led up to this final track. Live and Learn was done by the great in-house Sega band Crush 40, consisting of Senoue, bassist Tanada, drummer Katsuji, and lead vocalist Johnny Gioeli, who gave this song these real gruff and energetic vocals to go with the final fight that would cement itself in gaming history, no matter the opinion on the game or franchise. This truly is Crush 40 at their best in my opinion. Iizuka himself said this was his favorite vocal track in the game, while Senoue talked about the development of the track, saying how they actually used the title screen riff as the foundation for creating the song. And funny enough, when first recording it, they lost the first demo track. Back to the track though, the instrumentation Crush 40 used for the Live and Learn is phenomenal, with that amazing and catchy chorus, and the Live and Learn chant in between sentences makes for something truly special, and to this day is one of the coolest experiences in video games, especially with fighting this giant monster, Sonic and Shadow hyping each other up now as two true forces of good, and the rest of the cast cheering them on. It's truly something of beauty that I will love till the end of time, probably. It doesn't stop there either. Since this game truly is Shadow's game more than anything, the lyrics do reflect his full redemption arc with lyrics like, which refer to Shadow's anger and sorrow over what happened to Maria in the past, or well, even the title, Live and Learn, still promoting the dichotomy between Sonic and Shadow. Sonic, living by his life and his own feelings, while Shadow, learning the true purpose of life and why he was created, not to bring destruction but hope and peace to Earth. This track and final fight truly feel like an amalgamation of everything from Sonic 1 to now, wrapping up the series in what could have been its final game. This also extends to the music, where throughout the game, these different unique genres and musical influences from even Sonic Adventure 1 till now, bringing in these interesting characters with their own unique themes and compositions surrounding them, all being finalized by a true power metal track that not only cemented Sonic Adventure 2 as an icon of gaming even till now, but Crush 40 as a permanent mainstay in the franchise, and the true start of a legacy that would go on from this game till even now. Live and Learn has been used quite a lot throughout the years, even in the Japanese version of Sonic X's rendition of the Final Hazard fight, along with Shadow the Hedgehog, Smash Bros, Sonic Generations, Sonic Runners, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, among others.
I must destroy all the evil the Professor has created.
Shadow, I beg of you,
Maria,
give them a chance to be happy.
Chaos Control!
Maria, this is what you wanted, right? This is my promise I made to you.
And what truly makes this game have the impact no matter the age is while you may think the game ends there at this epic awesome boss fight high note, it hits you with a scene that to this day makes me shed a tear just to how powerful it is, with the completed redemption arc of Shadow wrapping in his death, and instead of the upbeat personality Sonic always displays, it instead ends on a rather somber note, of Sonic not cracking jokes, but simply walking in to greet the rest of the cast, reflecting on the events of the game. While the cast, who were at each other's throats throughout the story and series, instead simply put their differences aside just to talk about the future, which is only there due to Shadow's sacrifice. My favorite part of this scene is Sonic standing out, staring into space, reflecting on what Shadow said to him during the fight. where after Amy asks him if everything is okay, he puts on that same upbeat and free-spirited outward personality he's known for, but in that one instant, during that pause before heading to the door, and at the door before it closes, that "I'm too cool" shell slips, and it really hits home just how much this rival turned friend affected him, tying a beautiful bow on a masterpiece of a video game. With all that being said, none of this would have been able to have the impact that it did if it wasn't for Kumatani's marvelous composition on the track, Event: The Last Scene, which hits all of this home with those somber piano keys slowly played throughout the whole exchange between the characters. Sonic Adventure 2's music is something that can be truly appreciated by the masses and has spawned countless fans of the franchise, myself included. No matter what you think about the game, I think and hope after this video, we can all appreciate the amount of work, dedication, and passion that was put into creating this soundtrack that truly shaped an era. I want to thank everyone who's joined me these past 6 months as we solely cover the adventure games, and this will be the last full video on Sonic Adventure 1 or 2 for a while, as we move forward at a faster pace throughout the franchise. I hold these games very dear to my heart, and for the 30th anniversary, I wanted to share something with the masses that truly helped develop my own music tastes when I was younger, and make this as big of a love letter as possible to the soundtrack. There were so many different genres and cultural influences that I didn't even know about until researching for the video, all blended into this phenomenal soundtrack. You can really tell the composers gave it their all and had fun doing it, and I truly hope by the end of this you were able to at least get a better appreciation of the work that was put into these games, and at least one person comes out like, huh, I may not like these games but can respect where he's coming from. I call this a success on my end, as honestly this was the hardest script I've ever written. Sonic Adventure 2 could have easily been the last game in the franchise, and personally, I feel would have fit as a true way to wrap the franchise up for a very long time. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this, and I think it is time for us to let these games rest, say goodbye to Sonic Adventure 2, and its sound that truly shaped an era.